This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Decided to skip the show yesterday here on Covering the Spread, given the DeMar Hamlin situation from Monday night and all the uncertainty surrounding him. Just didn't feel fully right to talk betting when obviously that matters a lot less relative to what his family and his teammates are all going through right now. So skip the show yesterday, but he's still at the forefront of everybody's mind. And I want to send my good thoughts, good vibes his way, hoping he pulls through for that. Just tough situation overall there. We'll make up for the lack of a first look tomorrow on the Week 18 NFL preview show. Ryan Williams back with us for that one, his first show post baby birth. So that'll be fun to talk to Ryan there. We'll get to congratulate him on his son being born and talk to Ryan about NFL week number 18. Today, we're talking college football, the national championship game, Georgia versus TCU, by bringing Dr.ED Feng on and getting his read on Monday night's game. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here, as mentioned, by Ed Feng. Check him out on Twitter at The Power Rank. You can find his work at thepowerrank.com. Ed, we had a thrilling semifinals on New Year's Eve. We get I think a pretty fun national championship on Monday. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I do hope the national championship game is fun. A lot of the metrics suggest otherwise, but we'll get into that.
We certainly will. Spread is now 12.5 for that game. We'll break down some movement in that market, break down what Ed's numbers say there in a bit. But Ed, you're wearing a U.S. men's national team kit. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this right now. And Ed, was this intentional given the Gio Reyna, Greg Berhalter news that came out today? Are you leaning into the S show that is the U.S. men's national team right now?
It was intentional, and beyond the fact that a lot of my collared shirts are not clean at this point. I think we're going on a couple weeks here now where I've been a little bit lazy about the rest of my wardrobe. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun to.
Mine's not really a collared shirt. It's kind of a cheater collared shirt. It's just a quarter zip, a loose fitting quarter zip. So I think we're both a little. We're feeling that end of NFL season grind right now.
Exactly. But there's a little bit of drama in the U.S. men's national team camp. I don't even know where to begin. I guess should we tell the whole story?
Do it. Feel free.
Yes. So the coach, Greg Berhalter, it came out later, decided that Gio Reyna didn't really have much of a spot on this team, wasn't going to play a huge role on this team, which I think is crazy, but my opinion doesn't really matter. But apparently Reyna kind of didn't react to it well. Turned out that he wasn't training as hard in camp as he probably should have been, given his first World Cup appearance. And it came out that he almost got sent home. And so that's obviously not good. He did have a contribution. And I think we talked about this during the World Cup. You know, the U.S. team is a team that's got a lot of really good wingers. Christian Pulisic is an established star, and Tim Weah is awesome and is really lighting it up in France, and he deserves to get minutes. And Brendan Aronson might be the third best player on the team, definitely top 5, and he wasn't even starting. And I think Gio Reyna has the highest ceiling on any of those players. But so there are reasons why he might not have a role because of the personnel, but he didn't take that well. And the fact, stuff in the locker room is supposed to stay in the locker room. So it didn't reflect well on anyone that this news actually came out. And then today it came out that, so then yesterday someone had leaked to news that there was some domestic violence issues in Berhalter's past. And then he was actually very public about it on Twitter and explained the whole thing and his that he was sorry and so on and so forth.
And the incident that occurred was when he was 18 years old with his now wife.
Yep.
It sounds like he went to counseling after it. They reconciled 7 months after the fact and have been together for 25 years. I believe it's 25 years, something like that since then. So obviously doesn't excuse what happened, but it is, right. I think that the context around it is important, even though it doesn't, excuse what happened there.
I'm going to look down on him because I never made a mistake as an 18-year-old. But
Right. Right. Same.
No, clearly kidding. But now the kicker is that the person that supposedly leaked this information was Gio Reyna's mother, which is just simply not good. This is unnecessary drama. And, the U.S. Federation is trying to figure out whether Berhalter is going to be the coach over the next cycle. I would personally vote no. But again, my opinion doesn't matter. And Reyna's obviously an up-and-coming player. And now you just have this mess that maybe we can forget about by the time World Cup qualifying starts in 2 years. Who knows?
That bridge has been burned, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of carnage. There's a lot of things that have been burnt.
And apparently the additional context is that Gio Reyna's mom was Greg Berhalter's wife's roommate in college as well. There are just a lot of layers to all this.
I didn't get that. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay.
I believe I read that. I could have read that wrong, but I think that was part of it as well. So honestly, just like hard to script how bizarre this whole situation is. It's, you never want to make light of incidents that are very serious for sure. But I just think that like the pettiness to report that only after it becomes clear that your son is not going to get legitimate playing time, it kind of shows you don't care about the incident itself. You just want to blackmail the guy into playing your son, which is bananas. Absolutely bananas behavior.
I don't know if it's blackmailing him to play his son. I think it's blackmailing him to not be the coach the next cycle.
Yeah.
Now that it's coming out now, but I don't know. I mean,
well,
maybe
apparently they had messaged the U.S. men's national team during, I think it was it during the World Cup about this? I think that maybe it was after, it might have been after they were eliminated because it happened like December 11th, I believe, which was, I think, after the Netherlands game. It was when the report leaked about Reyna almost being sent home. I think that's when it all started to come about. The timeline is kind of muddy, but like, it's just, it is totally bizarre. And it kind of, again, illustrates that you don't really care about the situation. You just wanted to leverage it for your own gain, which is just pretty scummy.
I mean, I think it's still at the point of sources. Maybe it's not true that his mother leaked this information.
No, she told The Athletic that she did it. She told them on the record, I'm pretty sure. It's nuts. Like, because the original story I read was that it was Gio Reyna's dad. And then there was a report from The Athletic like 20 minutes later that no, his mom told them that she did it. And it's a banana story, which obviously just like moving pieces across the board too.
Yeah.
So some light reading if you want to catch up on the entire thing.
Yeah, no, I will catch up on the whole story because I clearly did not get the full story from the little bit in the ESPN that I just read.
How could you? There's so much stuff going on. Like you can't have the full story. But got the U.S. men's national team kit on. Yep. Because does this make us a legitimate soccer power now that we have like drama going on? Is that a prerequisite for being a contending team?
No, not really.
Yeah, just a fun time all across the board for them. Well, we're going to break down, hopefully, like Ed said, another fun time coming up with the national championship, talking about Georgia TCU. We'll also go back to the semifinals, break down any final takeaways from that in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Well, like I said, we have our Week 18 NFL preview show coming up tomorrow with Ryan Williams. I'll give out what my numbers are saying, our values there as well. Breaking down some intriguing games across the Week 18 slate. Get that by subscribing to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Also check out the FanDuel YouTube page. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Looking to get more out of this NFL season? Well, now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to touchdown scores to over-under yards. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in free bets when you join FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Kansas and Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700. In Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Now, before I dig into the championship game, talk TCU versus Georgia, Ed, did want to go back to the semifinals. Bizarre games, nutso stuff. Both games really fun to watch. Even when Michigan was down big against TCU, never felt like they were out of it, and they did claw their way back a couple times. Couldn't wind up converting there. Obviously, Ohio State had the lead against Georgia in that game. So, two really fun games, but also, both of us are Big Ten guys, and I think disappointing. Ohio State covered, as you called. You liked them plus 6.5 there, so you did call that, but I think disappointing overall to see neither team advance. But what were your final takeaways from those two semifinal games?
The Michigan game was interesting because watching it live, it really felt like they just squandered a golden opportunity against a team that wasn't as good as them. JJ McCarthy threw 2 pick sixes. It's not out of the question that one of those gets dropped, and that game is entirely different. They fumbled the ball on a first and goal from like the half-yard line, which came after the refs took away a touchdown that looked like a touchdown. So, it seemed like a lot of squandered opportunity for Michigan. Then you go back and you look at the game and you look at success rates, and, TCU was actually pretty good. They had a significantly higher success rate in the game than Michigan. So on a play-by-play basis, they were better. And, from watching the game, you could kind of see that as well. They were able to run the ball, but it was kind of lopsided. They were successful in 64% of their rush plays, which is good, obviously, but not as successful in the passing game. They only were successful about on a third of those plays. And that's not really something that translates forward going against Georgia. It's going to be even harder to run the ball against that Georgia defense. And in the other semifinal game, you could kind of see that the secondary is probably the weaker, I don't want to say weak, but the weaker part of that Georgia defense. Ohio State's offense is elite. They were basically able to do what they wanted, throwing the ball for the most part in that game. And, I think Georgia had their good bit of good fortune as well. The 76-yard touchdown pass to Arian Smith, where the defender falls down. It's pretty wide open. If you don't get that play, it can be a completely different game. Ohio State still has a field goal opportunity to win it at the end. The late game definitely turned out exactly as I expected. 100% thought Ohio State could keep that close and if not win it at the end, and that's exactly what we saw. So it's going to be an interesting final. It's a pretty big spread, so maybe not that much drama. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it certainly is a big spread, as you mentioned, 12.5. You mentioned the Ohio State playing out the way you expected. To clarify that, you mentioned Ohio State plus 6.5 on our bowl preview show, which would have been like mid-December, right when that line first came out. It didn't move off of 6.5 for a while, but like you said, I think that was kind of a good read. Also, Ed, I feel like you need to apologize to your numbers because they said they liked the over in both games, and you said no. Are you issuing a formal apology letter to your numbers for disregarding them on the totals?
No, not really. I mean, there was a ton of explosive plays, and that really moved things up. Obviously, the pick sixes, and so they both went, they both hit. So we'll be happy about that.
It's good for the numbers. You can feel good about that, even if you didn't wind up betting it yourself. So let's move focus now and talk about TCU versus Georgia. As mentioned, pretty wide spread here at 12.5, total 62.5. And we'll talk about the markets in a second, but I want to get your overall view on this game first. How are you viewing this game, TCU versus Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I kind of wonder if TCU can move the ball against Georgia's defense. I already mentioned that they were pretty successful running the ball against Michigan, but struggled to throw the ball. And Max Duggan really, he missed a bunch of throws in the game. His overall numbers were good. I think he threw for 250 some yards, but a lot of that came on one play to Quentin Johnson for the long touchdown, which was kind of a shorter pass that the wide receiver was able to break open. So yeah, anyways, I mean, to make a long story short, I mean, I don't, my number's slightly leaning toward the over, but I don't like it because I see scenarios in which Georgia's defense can be dominant in this situation. And yeah, I mean, I think it could get ugly. It could get ugly in this game. I mean, that's what you're seeing in a double digit spread. I think it opened at 13.5, has come down to 12.5. My numbers have it at about 11, but I'm not at all interested in betting the dog here.
So you mentioned you have your numbers have it at 11. It opened at 13.5 and it's now 12.5. So it has come down. Do you think that's correct? Because it is in line with your numbers, but as you said, you're not interested in betting it, even with it coming down. What's your read on that market specifically with the spread shortening a bit here of late?
I mean, I think you can certainly make the case. I would have made this about 13.5 before the semifinal games, and TCU put in a good performance. Again, it's, especially success rate wise against the Michigan team that everyone thought was significantly better than they were. So I definitely understand the movement. I don't necessarily think it's correct, but I understand why people would be betting TCU at, plus 13.5.
So you mentioned in the semifinals, your numbers like the over in both games that did wind up hitting. Total in this game is right in line with those, 62.5. Are you liking the over here again? What's your read on the total market for this one?
Yeah, I mean, my number has it at 64. I mean, I don't really like the over here. I think Georgia's defense could be dominant in this game against TCU's offense. So I don't know, maybe a Georgia team total. I don't know. We'll see, but not the game total for me.
Yeah, looking at the alternate markets, we could dig into some stuff that you could deviate from the Georgia side of things if you want to go that route, but 64 pretty in line with 62.5 for the total there. Okay, as mentioned, though, there are some secondary markets available over at FanDuel Sportsbook. You can get creative with these if there are other routes you don't like, may not be as efficient as the traditional game lines. They're not quite as bet into. So when you look at the secondary markets posted over at FanDuel Sportsbook, any of those stand out as being good values for you?
Yeah, none of them yet. I mean, I'm still waiting for the yardage totals. I didn't see any posted this morning. I think there's a couple different ways that the market could really overreact here. I mean, you had a Georgia wide receiver in Arian Smith that came into the game with 3 receptions. This is a very talented player, a super speedster. I think I read that he runs like a 10.18 100 meters. So an elite athlete, had a big game, including that touchdown, the 76-yard touchdown that I talked about earlier, had over 100 yards. So, yeah, I'm looking to maybe bet an under there on a yardage total when it does come up. I think you also have a situation in which TCU was able to break a lot of plays. Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver, had a pretty big total, so maybe his yardage total might be too high. This Amari DeMercado, the backup running back, and then Kendre Miller for TCU. They both had pretty decent games. Miller got banged up, so I don't really know what the books. I mean, it looks like he was up there in terms of anytime touchdown score. So the books are kind of assuming he plays, but he was clearly banged up. So again, this is like a Blake Corum heading into Ohio State situation, right? Where like they have to hang a number,
right? And
you're going to lean towards the under no matter what that number is, simply because the guy's hurt and might not be able to play or have that many carries. So I am looking forward to when those come out, and yeah, we'll see what happens there.
So with the Miller situation, I think the advantage that sportsbooks have in that market, the anytime touchdown market, is they can hide the hold. Like I mean, like, because they can mask things really well. You don't really know as much. I mean, obviously it's an anytime touchdown, so it's not going to be a straight situation where it could add up to a lot based on if it's a high total game and stuff like that. But they can kind of mess with it a little bit. I think that the prime situation would be when the actual yardage props come out. The problem is they're probably going to wait as long as they can until they get a firm read on what his situation is to post those props specifically. So I think that if you're looking at spots where we'll actually get actionable takeaways based on what you were saying, I think the Quentin Johnston one's probably the primary one, based on that big play, based on the fact that he's getting a lot of talk as being a legitimate NFL prospect. He's going to get a lot of buzz entering this week. So I wouldn't be shocked if they hang a big number up there. It's a big spread, which means they'll be, assuming TCU is going to be throwing a whole lot, getting some NFL draft buzz. That's going to be something that gets a lot of ears this time of year as well. Saw the big touchdown last week. I think if you're looking for analysis you were saying and trying to apply it in the most likely path, I think the Johnston unders is probably going to be the most viable path there based on a lot of the narratives that could be cooked up in these markets as they get posted.
Absolutely. Also, Georgia receiver Ladd McConkey didn't have a really big game. He was kind of coming off an injury. He has been one of their top receivers for over the course of the year. So that might be the only place where you can imagine trying it over in terms of yards. But we'll see. We'll see how that. I'm pretty sure he just didn't have. He did catch a 2-point conversion, but otherwise did not have a good game. He did get hurt in the SEC championship game,
and he was limping a lot in this one too.
Yeah. So maybe another week to rest, and maybe he's 100%, and it maybe as he gets back to the point where he's one of their top 2 receivers.
Well, it is a tighter turnaround too, typically because we actually have the semifinals on a Saturday and the championship game on a Monday. Typically, I believe the gap is a little bit bigger there because we'll often see the New Year's Eve be on a non-Saturday.
Right.
So I think this is the smallest gap they could have between the two based on the way they schedule things out. So in that regard, it kind of does decrease the amount of time they have to get that turnaround in there to get him healthy. And, it probably means his health will be pretty in line for that game with what it was for the other game.
Yeah. We shall see.
Yeah, for sure. Other thing too that could lead to unders being, unders are always kind of enticing for prop markets, but I think that the reason they could be even more enticing is because we discussed at the top. That's in the semifinals. Now both teams that were involved in those are playing once again. People are probably going to be having their brains tuned towards overs. So I think, like you said, targeting guys who had big games last week, who had long plays, flukier plays, that would probably be the way to go within the prop markets for this week. Any other bets you like over at FanDuel Sportsbook here for this championship game yet, or any final thoughts here?
Yeah, no, not really. It's only one game, so the surface area is not too large. But I am very interested when the yardage totals come out.
All right. So keep your eyes peeled over at FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm guessing some of it is injury related as those go up. We're talking here Wednesday afternoon. So pull up your FanDuel Sportsbook app, check to see what props are up there. Go back to what Ed was saying about which guys may be overvalued, kind of the overall thought process on that, and see if you can pluck some value at FanDuel Sportsbook. And as always, shop around too, because especially these prop markets, as we discussed with the Donovan Edwards one, line shopping there was very important. So always shop around with these big markets to see if you can get the best number at another book. That's all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. And Ed, it's our final college football show of the year, which is kind of sad. I've had a lot of fun talking to you college football, but hey, we're going to be back on talk some March Madness at some point, get you some college basketball thoughts. So I'm looking forward to that, but just a blast talking college football with you this week and this entire season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim.
And what's going on for you, not just this week at the Power Rank, but also for the coming weeks as well?
Yeah. So if you sign up for my free email newsletter, I'm actually making available an audio episode about the secret to predicting the college football and NFL playoffs. It is an episode about success rate versus explosive plays and what that means for Philadelphia and Buffalo. I think it's particularly good episode that I've made, so it's usually saved for members of my site. But if you sign up, I'll send you right there and you can stream it and check it out. So check that out at thepowerrank.com.
Also the pleasure.
Of course, I had
the
best podcast guest ever this week. A guy by the name of Jim Sonis came on, and we talked a lot about his models and betting props and a lot of good analysis of a bunch of games for Week 18 in the NFL. So definitely check that out at the Football Analytics Show.
It was fun to get the chance to talk like more in depth, like nerd number stuff about like my model, because like on this show, it's like, it's the same level of like intelligent listeners, which is nice. I appreciate all of you, but it's a short form podcast. So it's hard to like dig fully into everything. So it's fun to get a chance to just kind of riff on that for a bit, talk to you about that. Always fun to bounce some ideas off of you as well. But it was fun. I appreciate you having me on there. Check that out over at the Football Analytics Show. Check out Ed on Twitter at the Power Rank, and check out his work at thepowerrank.com. I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. We are back once again tomorrow to break down NFL week number 18. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.